So we want to start with some olive oil in a saute pan. So we put some olive oil in, and we get that hot. Meanwhile, over here, we have a huge pot of boiling water. We are going to cook the agnelletti. Very typical in a lot of Sicilian dishes. Between this pasta and spaghetti, these are two favorites that Sicilians always like to use. So we're going to be using the agnelletti. I'll warn you now, they take a little time to cook. So in the agnelletti go, we give them a stir, and we're going to let those cook just until they're al dente, because we will be baking this in the oven as well. So it's getting a dual baking, if you will. So I'll put the cover on just so that comes back to a boil. You'll have to help me keep my eye on that. Now back here to the ragu. What we want to do is start with the 4 evangelists of Italian cooking, which are our flavor ingredients. And that would be onions. So we want 2 onions, diced, a carrot or 2, celery, a couple stalks will be fine, and some parsley, flat leaf Italian parsley. So we want to get that going and get that soft. And now we can flavor this with a little bit of sea salt and a little bit of pepper. Here we have the 2 meats, a ½ pound each of beef and pork. In some locales in Sicily, this is made with lamb. The ragu is cooked down enough that we can add some bay leaf. Don't take all the water off. You want some of that water. And that's going to go right back in there. And stay there until I'm ready for it. All right, part 2 of the ragu is a cream sauce, known in Italian as a besciamella. And this is actually something that is inherited, really, from the French. This is an Italian cooking show, but we owe some things to the French, like how to make a cream sauce. So, how do you make a cream sauce? Well, you start with butter. Equal parts of butter and flour. So here we have 3 tablespoons of butter. Get that heat up a little bit and that heat down a little bit. So I don't want that to... Okay. Here we have 3 tablespoons of unbleached all-purpose flour. We want to make a quick roux out of this. Not a brown roux, but a blonde roux. A blonde roux means that you haven't allowed the mixture, the paste, to brown. 3 cups of milk, slowly. It's best if you add the milk hot, because then it will not bring down the temperature of what you're cooking. But if you had to use cold milk, you can. So 3 cups of milk. You could use skim milk if you wanted to, or you could use whole milk, whatever is your preference. But now you have to whisk a bit, because you want to thicken this up. And I'm going to give it the classic flavoring for a besciamella, which is nutmeg. Take a look in this pot. This is the cream sauce, the besciamella. It's now thickened enough to coat a spoon. And when it's thick enough to coat a spoon, you know that it's ready. So now what we have to do is combine these 2. So I'm going to bring this back here and leave that there for a minute. So now what do we need in this ragu? We need the peas. So the peas go in. Now you could use other vegetables for this. I think I mentioned earlier eggplant was one that was used. I'm going to take these out now. The 2 bay leaf come out. The peas go in. And look at how nice and thick this is now. Nice and thick. And now what we have to do is pour that into here. So we're going to take the besciamella. Isn't that rich looking? Now you can understand why this was such a classic dish for the Sicilian aristocracy, because it has all of these elaborate preparation steps in it. So now you want to just mix this around, just get it combined. And once this is well mixed, I'm going to take a cup of this out. And that's going to be for the top. That's about a cup. Set that aside. Now, and this is where dexterity does come in handy. We have to take this and dump it in here. All of that goes in. Beautiful. And now we stir this around. Get that all well combined, well mixed. Whenever I make this, of course, I do think about when I was a child and we had the agnolotti in other preparations, like in soup, tomato soup that my mother would make. All right, once it's all mixed, then you remember that timbalo form I was telling you about? Well, we need that now. So here's our pan. And now we need to put that in there. Let me get a scoop to help me do that. So I'm not going to try to dump all this in at once, but I'm going to spoon it in. Look how beautiful that looks. This is a happy timbalo. It's clever. It's fun to make, and it's wonderful to eat. So press it down nicely. And then that cup of sauce that you saved out, you put that right over the top, spreading it beautifully. Pressing that down. Your oven is on 350 degrees. Now we want to put on either some pecorino cheese, which is a sheep's milk cheese typical of Sicily, or you could use a Parmigiano Reggiano, which would be a cow's milk cheese from Emilia-Romagna. But pecorino cheese is much more traditional. And it's salty, so you want to control the amount of salt that you put in the dish originally. So the cheese goes on top, and now we're going to put in some butter, some dots of butter over the top, say about a couple tablespoons. That was a cup of cheese that I used, grated cheese. You can always use less if you don't want to use that much, but add a little butter over the top. This is going to bake uncovered. You want the top to be a bit crusty, and then you want to let it set up a bit before you unmold it. Okay, that looks great. Now, just to prevent any spillage in the oven, we want to put this, give it a tap, and stick it on a bake pan. Now we're ready to put it in the oven.